It says we're going live.
Hello.
Great success.
Hi, everybody. This is Mel from Life Forest.
I'm Tracy.
We're here today to talk to you about our guardianship burial program at Life Forest. And we want to let you know this is our first live stream in a new series that we're creating. And it's meant to be a very casual conversation. There's something on the screen.
What?
There's something on my screen.
I do not see it.
Okay. So please forgive us. We're very new to this process, but we are a fun crowd and we're enjoyable to be around, at least in our own heads. So we hope you enjoy this as well. Again, meant to be a very casual conversation. Our chat is open. Feel free to ask any questions. And as soon as there's a flow of conversation that allows for us to answer it, we shall do that. So first, let me talk about Life Forest. Life Forest is a conservation burial cemetery. The reason we are a conservation cemetery is because our land is held in conservation easement by the Conservation Commission of Hillsborough, New Hampshire. So we are dictated by the municipality around what we are allowed to do or not do on the land. And there are many things like building restrictions, etc. I created this cemetery as an passion project for my mom. And within that, a lot of how my mother lived became part of the ethos of Life Forest and how we choose to serve our community. So early on, as we were kind of learning about how to kind of let people know that Life Forest existed, I attended a funeral directors convention. And as I was setting up our vendor table, just kind of trying to let people know in the industry that we were available for their families, I had wanted to really express the mission of conservation and being able to allow the grass to grow and pollinator flowers. And in that mission, I had set out little jars of honey. And I was very proud of it because it was all locally sourced honey. And a good friend of mine had a little etching machine. So we were able to put our logo on it. And so I sat there proudly at my vending table at the funeral directors convention. And we were placed kind of, by the back door. I mean, I think maybe one of the toes of the table may have actually been outside. Near the smoking section. Kind of not maybe the most popular option, but again, we were very grateful to be there. And one of the most amazing things happened in that situation, and that is I met Tracy. So here I was sitting at my table trying to talk about conservation and why we thought it was important for burial,
getting secondhand emphysema.
Yeah, what helping hold the door for people trying to, have a lovely smoke. And in that process, Tracy actually approached me to talk to me about my honey.
Yeah.
So I'll let Tracy kind of tell you about that incident and then the incident. The moment in which we met. But
funeral, so people who don't know, funeral professionals, funeral directors specifically, have to get continuing education credits, just like a doctor or a nurse would, to keep us relevant with new practices, chemicals, and also to help us with burnout, mental health. In the funeral industry, it can be a very taxing job. And coming out of one of these conventions, which can be very heavy, also very boring. Let's be serious. And seeing a table filled with honey was a highlight for me. Big sucker for bees and the environment. Call me crazy. I just want to take care of this planet that we live on. So that's when I was very fortunate to meet Mel. And I think we are like-minded in the way that we're both crazy, and we'll kind of just try to do anything that we want to do. We will find a way. And we ended up chatting for a while, and Mel asked me to get lunch with her. And I think that lunch was like 2.5 hours long of just sharing information and talking and networking and going over the different connections. And I connected you with another funeral director who I knew had a little bit more standing, because at that time I was still just managing a funeral home. And yeah, we got to talking about abandoned ashes.
Well, and I think that, talking about Tracy and her experience is relevant in this moment because, Life Forest and this inception was formed 6-7 years ago now. But Tracy has been in the industry for a very long time. I do not have those kind of contacts, history, knowledge that Tracy has. So I'm going to tell you about Tracy and why her knowledge and what she does is so valuable for Life Forest. So Tracy, and this is, that's her. I am reading this from our little brochure so that I don't make a mistake or leave anything out.
I'll let you know if you miss anything.
Yeah, she'll let me know. She's right there. So Tracy is a current executive board member of the New Hampshire Funeral Directors Association, acronym NHFDA, if you want to look that up. She has worked for several years as a funeral director, and she loves animals and the outdoors, which is
Sure you've been hearing my dogs and my birds.
Yeah, see, we love animals and we like them to talk in the background. They need freedom. So she graduated from New England Institute at Mount Ida College in 2011. And she has with a BA in bereavement studies and funeral service. How many BAs do you have?
I have 2 BAs. I think that's I just realized there's a typo because I graduated in 2012, not 2011. Typo.
I'm not reprinting for that.
But I have a BA in psychology. I have a BA in psychology from Southern New Hampshire University, and then I went on to get my BA in bereavement studies with a minor in funeral service from NEI at Mount Ida College. I also have an associate's in business.
What is this? BA in psychology?
Yeah, that's my BA in psychology from Southern New Hampshire University, and then I also have a BA in bereavement studies and funeral service. So
okay, so now
only 2. Just 2. I have friends with like doctorates.
She's just. I studied English, just so you know. Would that be for here or to go? All right. So, but her death care industry knowledge combined with her conservation passion, she is the heart and core of the Life Forest team. She's been with the Life Forest team since, just the inception, really. Like she's help to form who we are, how we approach things, and make us knowledgeable and relevant in the death care industry in which we're serving. So that is Tracy, kind of her background, her knowledge, and why this is so important. And I see, hi, Dignity, Life to Legacy. Thank you for being here. If you have questions, just pop in. And I want to first talk about, Tracy, why do you feel that unclaimed ashes, why is it important that this person who has been unclaimed have like a community-based place in which they can, rest?
Why do I think that's important?
Yeah, like how did this come up?
How did all of this start? So when I was first an apprentice at a funeral home, I realized we were working with a lot of guardians, which I had, really very minimal understanding of what that even meant as an apprentice because I was still in school. And so as time went on at this funeral home, which I worked at for roughly 6 years, we had more and more guardians, and I would frequently hear them say things like, now I don't know what I'm going to do with these ashes, or, I guess we'll have to find like a pauper's grave, or I guess you're going to my closet, or another one for the filing cabinet. And I kind of hear these things over and over. And I finally spoke up as I became a little bit more confident and had gotten my license, and I'm an avid hiker. And I was like, well, if these are people who are unclaimed, have no family after a certain amount of time, we are legally allowed to dispose of cremated remains.
Dispose of.
That's terminology. So but it also helps the funeral home having this regular, and it's different from state to state. So make sure you know your state's rules and regulations. But in the state of New Hampshire, we have, I believe it's 30 days, and there's not a single funeral home I know of that only waits 30 days. But these weren't funeral homes. These are guardians. These are the people acting in place of family, and they are claiming these ashes, and then there's no family members to come and get them from these guardians. So they are ultimately the ones that are in charge of the final disposition, which is the term for, the last kind of care taken. So cremation and then burials. The cremation is technically the final disposition, but burial can also be a final disposition. So when it becomes the guardian's job, they don't know what to do. So a lot of them just end up in closets or mantles or garages or storage spaces. And I offered to scatter people in the woods on my hikes. And I had one guardian that really loved this. She's like, oh my God, these people were avid hikers or outdoorsmen. And that's wonderful. So I did my first scattering, and, we made sure all of the I's were dotted, T's were crossed, regulations followed. But I had this really empty feeling after I did it that now this person is lost in the woods. And that really didn't sit well with me. And it's not something I had even thought about prior to doing this. And I think that comes from an even farther back, deep-seated thing about not wanting anyone to feel alone. Getting a little bit personal, but I was bullied a lot when I was younger. And I think growing up, probably one of the reasons that I ended up becoming a funeral director to begin with is I wanted to help. Right. I didn't want anyone to ever feel like they were alone. I didn't want anyone to ever feel like they didn't have somebody they could turn to. And I didn't want anyone to ever feel like they were forgotten, because there were times where I was sitting on my steps waiting for people who were supposed to come get me, and they just never did. And that is something I would never want anyone else to feel. So after I had done this initial scattering, I felt very lonely for that person. And I decided that that's not something that I can do anymore. And I was handed another set of ashes for somebody that I am going to call Mr. X. And Mr. X ended up living with me. He went to 3 apartments. I literally became like a guardian of these ashes. Exactly what the guardians were doing, exactly what I was trying to avoid happening, happened to me and Mr. X. So when I met Mel and we were having this lunch, so to come full circle to this very long lunch, and I said to her, I have ashes of people who are just sitting. I've had one of them living with me for almost 6 years now. And Mel had mentioned that everybody who is buried at Life Forest is deed accessed and is GPS located. And to me, that's the minute she said that, my brain started shooting all these little fireworks off, because I was like, they can be found. So they won't be lost in the woods, right? So if we were to bury guardians, people could technically find them. And Mel was like, yeah. And I said, do you think Life Force would do this for free? And so over time, Mel was like, I'm sure we could figure something out. We found a way to work with guardians so that they didn't have people who were lost in the woods or lost in their closet. And we've actually reconnected people through the program.
So dignity in life. What is your name? So we have somebody here who has a really nice point, and she's talking about how ashes can be Hi, Laura. Thank you. Thank you for being here. So she makes a point about her mother's ashes are placed in the cemetery, and regulations needing to be followed. Obviously, cemeteries, funeral homes, they're all monitored. There's state laws, national laws, all that need to be followed by cemeteries, as well as any funeral homes and funeral directors. There's pretty strict, as there should be, protocols. And
funeral homes are highly, highly regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. So we have lots of rules, lots of regulations. We have lots of boards that are watching and governing everything that we're doing. So that's why I stressed, if you're going to be doing something like this, you need to make sure that you are following your state's rules and regulations to the T.
Yeah, and so and Laura brought that up, and that's an excellent thing to make sure that we kind of bring to the forefront.
I mentioned it earlier too, to make sure, like I said, when that first one was done, all of those I's were dotted and T's were crossed, because I'm not messing around with, with somebody's loved one.
Yeah.
And the law. Obviously, we need to respect all these things. So,
and I think that an important part of what Tracy just brought up was this relation to what we were offering, because I think just the word unclaimed has a very sad connotation to it. It's lonely, and it feels like there is no spot for you. And I find that often it's not about the person not being loved or not being picked up that earns them this unclaimed status. I think it is interesting because the rules in which we are ensuring that we follow are also part of the structure that serves to put these people on a trajectory to be unclaimed. And I think I'm going to explain that a little bit further in detail. So a guardian also has a lot of rules and regulations to follow in order to do their job appropriately and serve the person in which they are working to serve. They want the best for this person. And I also know that guardians have contacts, but they only have so many, right? So if we look at family dynamics, every family in the whole world, right? We have people in our family that are so close to us and we love them so much and they love us, but we also have people in our family where the link has become broken, right? That doesn't mean that our favorite cousin or somebody that our best friend, we have people, but that person may not be the person that's written on the document for the guardian to call. So
they may not be the next of kin or the legal next of kin.
Right.
Would be those terms. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, or they may be a person who is also incapable, right? It's not that they don't care. That person that they're required to call may also have their own compromised position, whether it be financial, whether it be illness,
diminished mental state.
Yeah,
we don't. Big one.
Yeah, we don't know. But the point is that a human being has a very wide circle of trust, of love, and all of that circle may not be encompassed by the person that is put on that legal document.
I keep holding up my face.
This
not this person.
This is Tracy.
So she's talking about the person who was granted access to the information. Every time you held up my picture, I'm like, she's not referencing me.
This is why we need professionals.
If the guardian only has so many people they're allowed to release information to. You also need to know that when death occurs, the guardian no longer has any say in anything. So everything they do is prearranged. So, and if you're unfamiliar as to what prearrangement means, that's something you need to talk to your local funeral director about, because you can prearrange funeral services. So guardians, when they are given the finances they are from the government for their cases, they have to create funeral arrangements that go into a mortuary trust account. Again, a lot of this is state regulation, so it might be different, but it has to be held in account to show that it is for future use of funeral services. So when they put burial at Life Forest, they can put money in that account if they have it available, but that guardian can only have so many people's names. So when the person actually dies, there's only so many people they can contact. So if that person's name is not on the contact, they're never going to know.
And that brings us back to the point in place. So one of the inceptions at Life Forest, believe it or not, happened at the same exact funeral convention. And we were sitting at our table out by the smoking section, and somebody kind of heckled me, and which is fine. I like being heckled, and I like to be heckled. It's fine. But the person was like, "Oh, you're one of those like green burial or one of these places where, people are just buried somewhere in the woods." And he's like, "I heard of that once, and it was like kind of a joke because they buried them and then they could never find them again." And I was like, that's ridiculous. And then I was like, what is it? Right? Like maps and cemeteries go in rows and letters. And I thought, and it's not a topography that leads to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, there's no way I'm losing people in the woods, including my mother,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to be buried there. So we have somebody on our team, Dr. Colton Sawyer. And I said to Dr. Sawyer, there was a point brought up at this convention about, losing people. And I said, how come if I want to get an ice cream cone, I can type in Friendlies and I can get directions to Friendlies, order it online, get there, and, look up the demographic, like I know about the company, I know about status. Like, why is all that information available, but I can't type in my mom's name and do the same? And what he explained to me is that, well, you just need to integrate that type of mapping into your cemetery design.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what we did. We created a cemetery design, and we were the first to do that. I know that everybody does it now, but it was thanks to, that situation that we put it in play.
I just see here, Laura had asked, we're in Hillsborough, New Hampshire.
Yep. And we also have a site
in Whistle Ridge. It's called Whistle Ridge, and that's in Auburn, Maine, correct?
Yes.
Yes, Auburn, Maine.
And we do have a steward program. So if you are not local to us, we can facilitate the receival and burial of cremated remains through that program.
So we are kind of we're countrywide, but the cemetery itself is physically either in Auburn, Maine, or Hillsborough, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I didn't want to.
No, I'm glad
I just didn't want to miss.
Thank you, Laura. And what we did is we take every burial site, and we get the latitude and longitude coordinates. Those latitude, longitude coordinates serve as the location point of the burial. And that allows for us to create an addendum to our land deed that puts their name, all of their beneficiaries, who's buried there, their vital statistics, right on an official recorded document that ties back to our land. So the people have access rights to that space forever,
Mm-hmm.
but it also saves that point in place, as does vital record recording.
It does, yeah.
So if we allow for burials to come in of unclaimed remains, we ensure that we're not doing any sort of mass burial type situation. No. Every single human being and every single animal has a point in place that belongs to them. And we found, and this was not something that was what we realized a result of what we were doing, but Tracy had referred some burials to us, and we buried this person under.
Yeah, I was managing a funeral home and I was working with these guardians and I had unclaimed ashes at the funeral home. Yeah, okay, I realized who you're talking about.
We're not going to say names.
No names.
No names. But we buried this person and placed the person's name and recorded it with the deed, the location. And what happened was somebody was looking for that person. Somebody was not on the notification list. This person was very loved. And in fact, it was somebody who was a partner to this person.
Mm-hmm.
So for many, many years.
But not a legal partner.
Right. Was not married.
So that's why I said not next of kin and not legal next of kin. So they didn't have any contact with the guardian.
Right. And so what happened was this person was not notified of the passing, and the person had passed away during COVID and was also a dementia patient. So if they had been living together, maybe that would have been different. But this person was under the care of a guardian for a long-term dementia situation, which was unaffordable for the partner. In order for care, the person ended up in a public guardian situation. So this person passed away. The partner went to visit to the nursing home, and the person wasn't there. So, like what we do in life,
and the nursing home wouldn't give any information,
right? Because
they weren't.
They have to follow the law
because they weren't. They weren't on the document that they were allowed to release this information. So he just didn't even know where
or what happened. Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
HIPAA laws.
Mm-hmm.
And so what did this gentleman do? He did what a lot of people do. He searched her name on Google.
He kept Googling her looking for, I think, an obituary.
Either an obituary or police, something. And so he searched her name and Life Forest comes up. Well, I have to tell you, this gentleman was like, what is Life Forest?
Yeah, wasn't he mad on the phone?
He was.
His
first was like, what is going on, right? So he called us, and Danielle answered the phone, who's our director of family services. And he said, what is Life Forest? What's going on? This is my person, my partner. And she had to actually break the news that she had passed away. When she passed away, which was quite a difference in time, because that guardian had to hold her ashes for 6 at least months.
She was at the funeral home.
She was at the funeral
home with me.
Okay. So he was upset, but then he said, all right, you know what? Can I come? Where are you? Are you public? What is this? We said, of course, we're a cemetery. Here's our address. And he went to visit her, and we received a very different phone call after that. He called and he said, I am so grateful. I was so upset to find out this way. But now that I've been there and I was able to reconnect with her again, I was so grateful, because she could have been, what was the word? Discarded? Is that how the legal term? You're allowed to be discarded?
Disposed. But yeah, she also could have been sitting on a guardian's shelf.
Right.
And not in a rude way, but we don't know what else to do. We're not bashing guardians. We know this. We're here to help the guardians the best we can, because we understand.
Yeah,
it's a hard position to be in. You're the protector of these
unclaimed remains.
And what are you supposed to do? So we're just trying to help ease that peace of mind, dignity.
He was so grateful that he found her again. He bought the plot next to her. And I mean, that wasn't something that we expected to happen, of course, but we were really grateful to have him part of our experience in our community. And then sadly, her next of kin, who was her son,
who no one could find.
Nobody could find him. He passed away, and he ended up being buried with his mom right next to her.
Her partner finally found him, realized what had happened, claimed him, worked with Mel, coordinated getting him here through the steward program. And now he is now buried and been reconnected with his mother, all because of the guardianship burial program.
Yeah, they wouldn't. I mean, ultimately, that mother never would have been with her son again.
Partner would have never known where she was, and
Yeah,
this could have been a lot different of a tale. And it's sad that anybody had to pass, but at least they're together in a safe, clean, documented environment.
right.
Life Forest is beautiful. And I see that you are asking about animals. Life Forest will allow people to bury cremated remains of their pets with them. So when if you're looking outside of the guardianship burial program, we don't have guardians with animals, but if we had someone come in with ashes, they would be buried with their pet's ashes, which you know happens from time to time. They travel with stuffed animals and things.
We also, if there are a few no-kill shelters in our area, humane societies, and when those animals pass away in shelter care, they bring them to us so that those animals have like, you know, at least a forever home.
And that's a specific day, isn't it? Like there's like a day for the shelter animals.
Yeah, we do. I just read
found
Laura's met.
Wow, at least they were able to reunite them.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy.
So people who can't read these comments, Laura had made a comment. Someone in Florida had remains at a yard sale found and reunited with a family member.
That is a cool story. It's funny that you say that, Laura, too, because I was just watching a TikTok where somebody was going through, I think it was like a Savers or a Goodwill, and they found an urn with ashes in it. They're like, this is a really cool looking vase. Whoa, someone's grandma.
Not okay.
And that's what happens, though. That's the thing to keep in mind, you know, people, oh, I want them home with me. And that's a beautiful and lovely, wonderful thing. But what happens when you die and say your children are like, oh, that's grandma. And then they have children and they don't know.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many photographs I found with no writing on the back, and I have like, no idea who they are. Not a clue.
So like, that's another
a person
thing to keep in mind with, you know, just cremated remains in general outside of the guardianship burial program. It's always, you know, a good thought to at some point inter your cremated remains just for family legacy, dignity, and like genealogy. You know, keeping track of where people are.
We had when Tracy introduced me to another funeral director, I had met with her, and I was just kind of trying to learn the industry and get to know, you know, where our place was and how we could serve best. And this funeral director said to me, I have so many people that just say, just cremate me and do whatever. Scatter me here, scatter me there. And she paused and she said, you know what? Future generations, they're going to have nothing. And I was like, what? She's like, there's nothing. And I was like, what does that mean? What does she mean?
There's not going to be anything.
I know.
No record.
And I was like,
we're all just going to be lost in the woods. This is like, I keep saying it, like, we're all going to just be lost in the woods. No one's going to know where anybody is.
Nothing.
I mean, I even think as a kid being at friends' houses and seeing boxes, and as an adult realizing those were urns in people's closets. I remember being like, oh, that's grandpa. And then just like, bye, grandpa. And I'm like, but did grandpa ever end up anywhere?
You know,
who has grandpa now?
You think about legacy, and then also I want to say this correctly, generational trauma, right? So there's a whole studies about this. Now, when the other funeral director had told me this, it had dawned on me that my grandparents were big on genealogy, like the maps that look like spider webs and the big rolls, right? And they were able to do that through cemetery record, right? So they wrote to all these cemeteries and these burial records and these church records in order to build our family history. So when I was 27 years old, I was able to connect with a woman who was a cousin that my grandmother started, pen paling with in her search for genealogy and church record. And my grandmother had recently passed, and I said, I'm gonna go. I'm going to Sweden. I'm gonna meet this person, and I'm gonna go to that cemetery where my great 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 grandfather is. And so I went on this basically an ancestral journey at 27 years old. I flew to Sweden by myself. I took the train. I met this woman who had been a pen pal of my grandmother's for years, who was a, third cousin. She was lovely. She looked just like my grandmother. I had the most incredible connection to her. And I learned about all these little family secrets that my grandmother had written to her about that she didn't tell anybody else. But in all of that, I realized I learned a lot about my family, but I also learned about myself. And all that unfolded for me on this genealogical journey. And so I actually went to the church, to the cemetery where my great 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 grandfather was buried. And I thought, wow, I feel this. I feel part of this. And you wonder if there's this gap in genealogy and genealogy connectivity in point of place. How does that affect ancestral trauma over time? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. But we have some comments here. Hi, Sharon. Is that you? Is your name
Sharon? Last night, my besties.
Companions actually were buried on his farm. The family kept some cremation to be buried at the family's. Yeah, in case the farm is sold. So smart.
It's a scary thing. A lot of people want to do burials on their property, and we're like, that's wonderful. And this is speaking as a funeral director talking. And I don't know if we said this about Life Forest. Right now, we're currently cremation only. We're not doing anything full body. So like when we're talking about burial on private property, some people will do full burials on their private property. But what if you sell? Right. Yeah. So that the property has to have that location, especially for full bodies. Not everybody does it with cremation, but you're supposed to go to your town and tell them that there is now a burial there. But if you move, that's it.
Yeah.
I was always afraid as a kid to bury any pets on property because I was like, what if I don't have my pet with me?
I know.
So having like a pet cemetery or a place that is not going anywhere. This is forever.
Yeah. So I mean, that's cemetery law and making sure you follow cemetery law. Mm-hmm. And it's really important. And that is the point of place in which future generations can find people. Yeah. So we are at like with my husband. It's veteran cemeteries are beautiful.
Beautiful. They're very well maintained. Very well maintained.
So such great respect. We love our veterans, and veteran cemeteries work so hard in order to have and protect people. So we're very grateful that they exist, for sure.
Absolutely.
I am going to talk briefly about what we're going to be talking about next month. If you want to follow this series, we at Life Forest worked with child grief authors in order to publish this book. I'm going to show the screen. Funny.
I'm going to hold it for you. There we go.
I need help. I'm sorry.
We can't do anything serious.
Well, it's a very serious world.
You can always talk to Possum at Life Force.
Okay.
Tell us about it, please.
All right. So quickly, we all right. I was very sad coming from non-death care to realize that children lose parents. And it's not just like once in a while, it's a lot. And the first time I saw a child bury his father, like little tiny shovel, I'm telling you, I was like, I can't, this is not the industry. I can't do this.
I'm going to interrupt Mel here because she's talking about a tiny shovel. So we don't have them going out there digging their own holes. We offer if you would like to place some dirt into the ground, and therefore we have a small shovel for smaller. Yeah.
But he did have a tiny shovel.
And we do have a small child-sized shovel, yes. But it was the way
so
you said
sad.
it, I needed to clarify. But it is very hard
Yes.
And this comes from
Okay.
this experience.
So this experience happened, and I realized there's all these resources out there for adults, like NAMI and this and that. And then I'm like, what about this little guy, right? Like, I want to give him something that he can take with him that actually does and serves a purpose of healing, and not just like, here's a coloring book, or, those things are nice. But I wanted people who are educated in child grief to help me come up with something that can be gifted to the children. So we worked with child grief experts to author this book. You can also always talk to Possum at Life Forest, and she's busy looking, not sharing with anybody.
Yes.
Anyway, in this book, this chipmunk loses his best friend Possum.
Let me get
I like this page.
No. I'm gonna get a better chipmunk.
But I just smell the moose.
Okay.
All right. So listen, this is the moose. Okay. So this chipmunk meets different woodland areas. I mean, woodland creatures in woodland areas.
I'm not.
She's looking at me, but so this moose is a representative of depression. And so Chippy is like, wow, I'm really tired. I feel lethargic. And Moose allows Chipmunk to say, that's okay. We get tired, and let me carry you to the next woodland creature who represent any of them.
And it just keeps going, right? Oh, this is a good one. Here we go. We got
So we have Chippy, who has just met Bunny, and Bunny is like nervous. He wants to talk. He's nervous. He doesn't understand why he's nervous, but he's nervous. And so each animal represents different stages of grief in relation to a woodland character, so that kids can kind of feel a relatable source. And we're going to talk about that book. And we have a little workbook that we offer for no cost. You can download this workbook on our website. There's no information grab, anything. And we gift those, and we gift these to children through our little free library on the land.
Yeah. So this is more like your traditional workbook. It helps you kind of process and
it's
questions to think about.
If there's like a student that lost a parent in a classroom, then the teacher can download this and give it out to the students at no cost.
I should also mention too that Life Forest is a location for little library, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So what we do when we have a burial service and there's a child that's affected, it's a parent that's being buried, we put this in our little free library ahead of time. We have a staff member that is like kind of assigned to making sure this child receives this book. The name of the child is put in here. So we could say, wow, we knew that you were going to be here today. You have something for you. And that gives the child something to take home, to hold on to, and it also in the back is resources for adults to help their child. Because sometimes we don't understand how to do that.
Ways to talking points, A long time ago, I used to always recommend
resources.
Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers had a pamphlet about talking to children about death. I think the beautiful thing about Life Forest is the location itself is very comforting. So when we're talking about bringing children to funeral services, it's not the same feeling. And as a funeral director, I feel very strongly that kids should be at funerals and they should be involved in these things, but I know that that's not how everyone feels, and that is 100% okay. Life Forest it's a comforting, magical environment. So it is a beautiful place where if you're going to introduce children to something that's a little bit more challenging, something in life that we can't avoid, the unavoidable facts, I think something along those lines and Life Forest is really super helpul in that regard.
Yeah. So this little guy.
It's not a scary place.
No, it's not scary. And this little guy was experiencing this burial, and after the fact, everybody was obviously, we're all sad and people are crying, and he knew it was heavy, and he looked up at his mom and he said, can we go swimming now? So she had packed his swim trunks, because there's a swimming
hole right on the property.
Yeah. And so they had this really hard experience, and then decompressed a little bit after the service. The kids went swimming. They came back afterwards. And I think that maybe, and hopefully, you get one chance to get a burial right. And that experience is burned into people's life experience and memory. So, we want to do it correctly. And I think that child was able to leave with a softer close to that day.
And I think that in that same vein, the Life Forest property is open 24/7, right? And it's open to the public. It has hiking trails. It has a glacial rock. It has a stream where you can swim. So you can go visit your loved one and then go swimming. You can bring your dogs on the property. It's pet friendly, So like when I work the property, I bring one of my dogs with me and, well-trained dogs and we clean up after our pets. We don't, hey.
I'm messing with you.
But, it is not your traditional cemetery. And it's a very magical space, but it's also a space that wants to make sure that those who are disenfranchised, those who are left in the woods, those who are potentially alone are no longer alone. You are always cared for at Life Forest. You will always be found at Life Forest. You will never be alone at Life Forest. And there are events. I hope you visit the website and see some of the beautiful things that they put on. I mean, there's Midnight Market, which is, I volunteered at one time, but it's lovely. So much fun. There's the New Year's Eve candlelight walk. So like, it is a community you join with Life Forest. It's not just, hi, my dad's buried there. And then you go on with your life. You can just say, hey, my dad's buried there. And then that's enough for you. But if you want more, there is more. And if you're a guardian who is looking for a place for people to go and not be forgotten, Life Forest is definitely a place for that.
So we're going to wrap up. We don't scatter. No, we don't scatter. We are burial only, because if you do not bury, you cannot be part of vital record. And that's really important to us. So that's the purpose for that. But, and Laura said, I want to mention these resources that she has brought up. Barbara Carnes has a coloring book for children. So please look that up. And it's called Tree of Life by Kimberly Carnes.
I think I've actually heard of that.
Oh, I'll have to look that up. Thank you. We'll buy that and put it in the library for the kids. No, that's awesome.
Lovely. I also want to mention, I know we had talked about mass burial type things and how we do not do that. The only situation where you might find something similar to that at Life Force, and I just want to mention it, is we have funeral homes that have purchased plots.
Oh, yeah.
And there will be multiple people buried in there in separate containers. But they are all GPS marked. So if you go to that GPS location, all of those people will come up. But that is because that funeral home purchased a large tree for the plot. Yeah. So that's the only difference outside of like the guardianship.
We bury people together,
but not in a mass rate.
Yeah, that are related.
No commingling and things like that.
Unless you really want to.
Unless you want that to happen.
Yeah, we'll commingle you
if you want the things. Sorry about my dogs.
Do you want to be commingled with me?
No, but my dogs.
Okay.
Commingle me with my dogs.
She doesn't want to be commingled.
No,
not even dogs. A toe. How about my toe? Okay. All right. It's best. Okay. Thank you, everybody. If you have any further questions, please reach out to us. We are always available at thelifeforestcemetery.com. You can call us at 603-315-0790. You can email us at inquiries@thelifeforest.com. Ask for Tracy. That's with an I.
Tracy with an I. Denver like the city.
And we will make sure she gets it. So
happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, she's amazing. And so thank you all for being part of our first live stream. And we will make this available to others at another time, so you can share what you learned if you wish through that process.
Please, but absolutely, thank you for participating. And please, please, please reach out with any questions that you have.
We're here for it.
Always want to hear any, constructive criticism is always welcome. Advice, I will accept your constructive criticism. Okay. But thank you for everything. Really, Really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay. And all right. So we end.